Jake, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Breakthrough Series. I'm glad to have you. Yeah. I think it's going to be an interesting story to hear from your perspective.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So 30 seconds before we get to the very beginning of your story, before you, like the details before you got into real estate, can you give a little synopsis of who you are as a real estate professional, just to get a context?
Yeah, do you want my story before real estate?
No. So before we get into that, I want to get a little 30-second context of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a real estate agent. I help people find their homes or find their next investment properties. I think one thing that kind of defines my business that I think is different than maybe a lot of other people is I always lead by the mantra people before profits. So that's something that I definitely like to keep top of mind throughout all of my transactions, and that's not only taking into account my clients, but also the agents on the other side, the sellers or buyers on the other side. But I think money can get in the way of a lot of people's
greed.
Can kind of take control. So I think one thing that is really a driving force for me is kind of keeping that people before profits front of mind. Because I think everybody does a lot better when you operate with that mentality. So, I mean, at the end of the day, realtors are all doing the same thing, but the reason why you're doing it is the thing that can differentiate you. So, I've put a lot of thought and a lot of time into how I want to be different from that perspective, and that's where I've landed.
Awesome. So are you from Columbus originally or not?
I am not. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
So I came here about 15 years ago to go to Ohio State. And then I graduated. I met my husband when I was in college. So stayed here for that and stayed here for work. There are a lot of really great employment opportunities in Columbus. After I graduated, I was in the marketing profession for about 10 years prior to getting into real estate. So between, personal life and professional life, Columbus just had a lot of opportunities, a lot of reasons to stay.
So what'd you study in college?
Marketing.
Yep. Okay. And so before you got into college, and obviously you came here for college, but before you did that, did you have an idea of what you wanted to be when you were going to grow up?
No, I actually remember going to the career counselor at Ohio State when I was a freshman in college.
And like, what do I need to do?
I was undecided, and I remember having a conversation with her about not knowing what I wanted to do, but knowing that I wanted to do something I was passionate about, which I think is something that a lot of people get wrapped up in with their career. And I think what I've realized over time is that what you're passionate about doesn't have to necessarily be your career. You can have passions
outside of where you make money.
Exactly. And finding something that I think fits your strengths and that you're passionate about because you're really good at it. I think that can be enough for a lot of people.
I mean, you can also kind of learn to love what you do,
even
though you don't love it necessarily as you start off.
Yeah, for sure.
So you, what made you decide to do marketing in that case? Because when you came here, you didn't know at all what you were doing, right?
Well, to be totally honest, going into the business school at Ohio State, one of the reasons I did that is because I didn't want to take a foreign language. You don't have to have a foreign language requirement for the business school, so that was one thing. But I felt like it was a good background to have for somebody who didn't know exactly what path they wanted to go down. Business is kind of all-encompassing, and I think no matter what industry you're in, marketing is important. and marketing is a skill that you need to know. So, you know, I kind of felt like there was that piece of me that was like, oh, well, marketing, like that's fun, you know, like I could be good at that and I could be passionate about that. But it was also something that I felt like gave me the flexibility to kind of like choose my own adventure career-wise.
So as you're doing marketing, studying marketing in college, did you have a sense of, I want to work for myself, or this entrepreneurial kind of spirit? Did you have that, or did you just finish college, get out of college, and just let the career take wherever it took?
I think it kind of just took me where it took me, you know, like, I mean, that was always a frustration for me. And I think it's a frustration for a lot of people, is they don't know what they want to do when they grow up. And then all of a sudden you're like grown up and you're like, I still don't know what I want to do. And, you know, I feel like maybe it's a societal thing where you know, we're always kind of like not content with where we're at. But I think to a certain extent, I kind of just let fate take me, you know, where it took me. I got a job at an advertising agency
right out of
college, and you know, it was something that played to my strengths. It was something that I enjoyed, and so it was kind of one of those situations that I didn't fall into it. Like, I was looking for a job in marketing and advertising, but the opportunity presented itself, and I took it, and I enjoyed it, and I kind of went with it. So, you know, I don't necessarily think everyone has to have this master plan. I think a lot of times it's actually better to just kind of trust your intuition and, you know, go with the flow and see what happens. And for me, I think, you know, I've wound up somewhere where I'm really happy. I'm in a place where, you know, I feel like my skill set, you know, fits with my career path, and you know, I'm passionate about it in ways that, you know, make me happy and allow me to be in this role for, you know, a long period of time. I'm not content with where I am, so that's a good feeling, you know. I think not content is is a good place to be, you know. I mean, people want to, you know, have this dream job, and you know, I think sometimes we have to just say, like, you know, this checks all the boxes for me, or checks most of the boxes for me, and I'm happy with that.
So I think when I was talking with you the first time I met you, you mentioned your story of going into marketing, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. But you mentioned that you consider that the marketing skills that you learned from those 10, I think, plus years were very valuable to you as a realtor now, and they really helped you to kind of differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
So what were some of those things that you learned, and how exactly are they helpful to you now?
Yeah, well, I mean, marketing, like I kind of said earlier, is crucial no matter what industry you're in. I think with regards to real estate, there are two places that it really kind of comes in handy. I mean, real estate is, you know, it's the secret sauce here. It's going to see how the sausage is made, but it's all self-promotion, right? I mean, like, we all kind of, to a certain extent, do the same thing. So you have to be able to sell yourself. You have to be able to sell your skill set. You have to be able to tell people, hey, you know, I have this experience, you know, I have this skill set, and this is why you should work with me. So I think that marketing is it's all marketing when it comes to real estate. And then, you know, I think from the seller side, I mean, obviously, when you're trying to sell your property for top dollar, the more eyeballs you get in front of, and getting in front of the right eyeballs is really crucial in making sure you get top dollar for your property. So marketing is really important from that perspective, because you want to make sure you're working with somebody who knows what eyeballs those are and how to get in front of them. So on that note, I'm sure, like you mentioned, you're going with the flow from college, high school, college, and as you went into the marketing career, I'm sure there were moments where you asked yourself, like, what am I doing? But I'm sure you can also say, looking back, there were times where you were going through certain moments where you're like, I'm not sure what's going on, why I'm doing this, but then now you see the results or the fruits of that kind of process. So can you think of anything off the top of your head of
maybe something you were doing in the marketing career or something you were learning in college that's really applicable now?
Yeah, I mean, social media. I think social media is huge, and it's funny that that's my go-to because one of my biggest gripes when I was just in the marketing field was that every client or every person I talked to that had anything to say about marketing was like, we got to get on social media. Like this is a number one priority, and a lot of times like that's something that needs to be maintained, but that doesn't necessarily need to be the number one priority. So it's funny that I'm saying that is kind of the number one thing, but from a real estate perspective, like I said before, like it's a lot of self-promotion. Like you want people to see your personality. You want people to see the experience that you have. You want people to see your successes. You want people to remember you and keep you top of mind. All of those things are when you're talking about the product, I guess you could say, being a person. Like from a real estate perspective, like I'm the product, or my team is the product, or my brokerage is the product. So when you're selling a product that is a person or a personality or something like that, social media is the perfect platform to do that because it allows you to express yourself and kind of not create the image, but promote the image of who you are. So I think that has been something that has really allowed me to flourish and kind of stay top of mind for people.
So as you're in the marketing career, what made you want to switch or look for something new or different? Or was it maybe not necessarily something in the marketing career that you didn't like?
Yeah.
What made you switch?
Yeah. Real estate has always been that thing that's kind of been floating out here. Like, would I like that? I think I would like that. And really what it was is taking inventory of what things were important to me in a career and in my life, and kind of matching up careers against it. I mean, I definitely have an entrepreneurial spirit. I'm very independent. I like to set my own goals. I like to have changing goals and be able to not be limited, by a corporate pay structure, something like that. And I also like flexibility, which is something that a lot of people, when they want to get into real estate, they're like, "Oh, I really want a flexible schedule." And it's like,
no, I don't. Once you figure out what it is,
it's a double-edged sword. It's like, every once in a while I can sneak in a nap on a Tuesday, which is awesome. But then, my weekends are pretty much
non-existent.
Gone. So it's like you have flexibility because you can kind of, to a certain extent, create your own schedule, but you're also at the mercy of clients. So I forgot what the question was.
So, well, what made you switch from into real estate?
So, kind of looking at all of those things that I valued, and looking at my past career and my past positions and that corporate structure, and working in an office and all that good stuff, it didn't really match up with that. And real estate did. So, kind of taking the passion that I did have for real estate, because I do really enjoy it. I love the negotiation. I love the personal interaction. I love looking at houses. I mean, it's not always like, oh my God, I can't wait to see this house. Usually it's not, but kind of getting to see that inventory is exciting. And then just like knowing the city. I feel like I know Columbus very intimately in a way that I didn't before, even though I'd been here for a long time.
Inside out, quite literally.
Yeah. I mean, there are streets that I drive down that I'm like, I love this street. I had no clue this neighborhood was here, and that is exciting for me. So,
so just to kind of pinpoint it and be a little bit specific, was it the bigger pay that you liked? Was it the flexibility of schedule, a little bit of both, or what was like the biggest pulling factor for you?
The biggest factor I think would be the independence, the ability to kind of make my own decisions and not report to anybody and kind of have the independence to own my own business and kind of create my own path. I think, I know what I'm capable of and I know what I can do. And I feel like being able to do it for myself and kind of make those decisions for myself, I think was kind of the biggest draw for me.
So because I imagine people that are young, they're also like around your age, my age, closer, they're also looking for a way to find out what they should take, what step they should take in their career. Was there any other alternatives you thought about or considered about outside of real estate as like the next step? Like I imagine knowing your social media background, you could have started like an agency where you helped other companies build up their social media platforms, their campaigns.
I actually did.
You did?
Yeah.
So what other things were you thinking about? Or maybe even want to talk about that part?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good thing to touch on because in between, working for agencies and companies and getting into real estate and working for myself, there was a period of time where I had my own marketing consultation agency, and I really enjoyed the work. I mean, I still have a passion for marketing, but there was something about that type of business model that it just didn't suit me as well. And I kind of go back to like the boxes I was talking about earlier, like checking the boxes and having your list of things, the independence, the flexibility, unlimited earning potential, not being in an office all the time, like all of those things that kind of drew me to real estate. Working for myself from a consulting perspective, checked more of those boxes than
working for a corporate
or working for another company, but it didn't check enough of them, I guess, for me. And that's kind of how I got to a position where I was ready to make the leap into real estate. But I do think that was an important step in my journey because that gave me the confidence to say, hey, I can create something.
It was like a kind of slow transition into complete independent.
Yeah, like I can create something. I can be successful in a new endeavor. I can do this, and I feel like that gave me the confidence to take the push or take the next step into real estate.
So you decided to go into real estate. I'm sure you were aware that there were loads of other realtors around. And to give a little context for the audience, you're already producing at a level within the 2 years that you've been in as a realtor, or this is your second year, right?
It's my second full year.
Full year. You're already producing at a level of people that have been in the industry for probably maybe even close to 10 years.
Yeah.
So there's obviously something you did differently that worked for you. Did you have that kind of mindset going in? Like, I really have to sit down before I start selling homes and figure out what I'm going to be doing differently? Or did you just kind of jump into it and figure it out?
I just kind of jumped into it. I don't know. I've kind of thought about it before, like what's the difference? Because I think the metric that I heard when I got into real estate, they like literally tell you this when you get your license and you're at the board of realtors taking your your introduction course or whatever. They tell you that. I think it's like, don't quote me on this, but it's like 90% of people who get their real estate license don't renew it after the first year, which is crazy.
Really?
So
I didn't know that.
So being part of that group that renews your license, but not only renews it, is able to take off really quickly has been something I've been really proud of, but I haven't been able to quite identify why. I mean, I think to a certain extent it's just the ability to network. My husband and I are both very social people. Like I've noticed we have a tendency to we'll go to a party where we don't know anyone and the two of us split up, and then when we leave the party we have met everyone at the party and everyone wants to hang out and we love everyone, and so I feel like just having the ability to kind of network, and I guess you could say, I don't like to say self-promote because I don't think I think my connections with people are genuine. Like I'm not going to a party or going to a networking event or something like that with the intention of like, ooh, I'm going to get some new clients today. But I think just being outgoing and being willing to talk to people and spark conversations has been a really big help to me, because a lot of people are afraid to do that. Like I'll be, if I'm in a good mood, I guess I'll be at a coffee shop and I see something and somebody was wearing a shirt that I think is cool, and I strike up a conversation, and I feel like that's the kind of those are the kind of interactions and the kind of things that allow you to really kind of build your network really quickly and in a way that's genuine, because that's the other thing too is you can recreate a lot of things, but if you're not doing it, if it's not who you
people
are,
can
and
see
it's
through
not,
it if it's not
genuine,
if you're seeming manipulative.
Exactly.
So do you, on that note, because it sounds like even in personal kind of activities that you do going out, it still ends up being kind of it still ends up resulting in business. So would you say that there is such thing as a work-life balance as a realtor, or
No.
does that not
Nope.
exist?
Doesn't exist.
That's funny.
That's
so
it. No. I mean, it does, and I think I am, like I said, I'm proud of where I've gotten in the past 2-3 years since I've been licensed, but I'm not trying to say that there's not a lot that I have to learn, and I think some of those, I don't know if you'd call it a soft skill, but like some of those things, like how to balance work and personal life, are things that I think come with time. And when you're in a new industry and you're always on and you have your phone and you have expectations, the clients that have expectations of you, kind of finding that balance is I think something that I need to work on. You get to a point with real estate where it can consume you, and that's not healthy. Unless you want it to consume you, but I don't. So I think your first year or so, you're really excited and you're like, oh my God, my phone's blown up and I'm so excited about this. But burnout is real no matter what industry you're in. And even though I still am excited to get those texts and to communicate with people, and I like being available for people, and I like, meeting their expectations. It does get to a point where you have to set boundaries. So I think I'm still trying to figure that out.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to ask, what kind of recommendations do you have for young entrepreneurs that have not been able to figure out that balance, or maybe not necessarily even a balance, but just sometimes like switching off and not being in the back of your mind constantly thinking of new ideas to grow your business and whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Have you found anything that works for you? Obviously it won't be perfect, but maybe like something even small. Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to look different for everyone, because balance is different for different people. You know, some people thrive off of being on all the time, and so if being on all the time is what you thrive on, then by all means. Some people, exercise is that thing that helps them find and achieve balance. So I don't think there's like a right answer for everyone. I think meditation is huge. It's something that I preach, even though I'm not as consistent with it as I would like to be. But I think finding that time and that space within your day is really important. And I think making sure that it's intentional meditation, like exercise is a form of meditation, and I enjoy cooking, and cooking is a form of meditation, but actually sitting down and being mindful and doing those meditations, even if it's 5 minutes throughout the day, can really kind of allow you to take a step back and can give you a lot of balance. So I think that's important.
So what would you say, 'cause in your second full year of being in the industry, what could you say you could have done differently? Because I'm sure there are things you would say, I wish I would have done this right from the start. Things that you might be already doing now.
Yeah.
Even if it's something small, because it doesn't necessarily have to be something big.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good question. I think...
Or maybe what would you say to another realtor that's just starting out? What would
Yeah.
you say they need to be doing?
I mean, I think establishing like marketing, like a marketing calendar and templates and getting a database set up and really being conscious about how you're interacting with that database is important. One thing that happened with me, which I'm really grateful for, but is something that I feel like could have been, somewhat of a missed opportunity, but hindsight's 2020, is I was able to ramp up pretty quickly. And it's real estate's an industry where it's very easy to get busy and not have time for anything else, which that's a whole another conversation. I have feelings about the word busy. But I think, using that time up front when you don't have showings all the time and you don't have, transactions that you're managing and stuff like that, to, establish your brand, to get your database cleaned up. Like, who do you know? What's their phone number? What's their
kind
mailing
of looking
address?
to the more long-term kind of activities.
Yep. And I mean, just telling those people, the most important thing you can do is tell people that you're doing this now.
As a realtor.
So I feel like that's something that maybe I didn't do as well up front as I would have liked, but that's because things kind of snowballed. And I just got to this place where, I was just kind of working on
It almost sounds like you just jumped into a portal of real estate. It's like, oh, now I'm here.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask two more things. One is one more question, and then a little game at the end that we'll play.
Do I win something?
You win the speed of quickly answering those questions.
Sounds good.
So looking back over your life, it doesn't necessarily have to be business related. What is some advice you would have for people that are just starting out? And not necessarily, because I already asked advice on picking a career and stepping into it, but just more broadly, maybe it's a habit that's very useful that you found, like you mentioned, meditation, something like that you think is very useful that would benefit a lot of people.
Yeah. I always tell people to ask for what they want. That's something that I feel like as humans, or maybe it's our society, where we come from this place of thinking that we want everyone to be thinking about our needs and our wants and stuff like that. And we're kind of selfish beings, we're thinking about ourselves. We're not thinking about what other people want. And so if you want something to happen, if you want somebody to do something, you need to ask for it. And I think that it's a super easy thing, but it's something that not a lot of people do. And it's something that I've done, and it has gotten me things that, small things and big things that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't just ask and made somebody else conscious of my desire.
People can't read your minds.
Exactly. And I think it's an impactful thing. I mean, just just to give a small example, I remember one of my previous jobs, we had cubicles, and I started as a temp at that job. And so the temps were in a room and we all had desks and, whatever. So then when I got hired on full time, I needed a desk, I needed a cubicle, and there are small cubicles, and then there are ones in the corner that were like twice as big. And those were director cubicles,
Or so everyone thought.
And so everyone thought. So, I needed a desk. So I knew the person in HR who essentially assigned the desks, all of the power that she had to assign the desks. But and I was good friends with her, and I was nice to her, and I knew she wasn't thinking about me needing a desk. She wasn't thinking about what desk she could give me. Eventually, it probably would have, came up that Jake needs a desk, but it was something that I knew I needed, and I knew what I wanted, and I asked her. I said, hey, there's this desk right here. It's right next to my boss. It's right next to my team. It's the only one that's open. Can I have that one? And she said yes. And there are other people that were frustrated that I got the big desk, even though they've been there longer and stuff like that. But I think it's just an easy example. It's a silly example, but it's an easy example of a situation where, I looked at something and I said, this person isn't thinking about my wants and my needs, but it is something I need, and I'm going to ask for it, and I'm going to ask for it in the way that I want it, and I got it. So
it's kind of like we forget that people can't read our thoughts, and so we imagine that there's like a screen next to us of like everything we want. Yeah. And so if you actually mention it, you might get it. And I think if you think about it this way, what's the worst that can happen if I ask? Yeah. And I think that can be applied to a lot of things actually. But what's the worst? The worst thing is they say no. No. Yeah. And then you get what you're going to get anyways. Yeah. And it comes with in regards to promotions at work and raises at work. It's like people sit around and they're like, well, I'm doing all this work and I don't feel appreciated. And it's like, well, have you asked? Like, did you literally go to your boss and say, hey, I'm doing this, and this, like, I want a raise. And if they say no, what can I do to get there? You just kind of have to remind people that you're there and that you need certain things, and eventually you'll get it. And if you don't get it, you at least have some more insight into what you need to do to get it. And I think people at some point will appreciate that characteristic. It's like of being a go-getter and not just sitting around waiting for the stars to align. Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing with real estate. There are a lot of agents, probably those 90% agents or whatever, that don't renew their license over the first year, that are like, well, I have a lot of friends and I know a lot of people, and why am I not selling any houses? But they're not going out and they're not asking those people, can I sell your house? Like they're not asking for what they want. And so I think that's something that has allowed me to thrive in the real estate industry, is just telling people what I want.
So one more thing, and this is a word game I play with every person I interview. Okay. I'm going to name 5 words. Every time I name a word, all you have to say is just say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Oh, this could be dangerous. Okay.
So the first word is family.
Family. Mom.
Foundation.
Building.
Money.
Spending.
Failure.
Never.
And the last one is legacy.
Legacy. It's 2 words, but in progress.
In progress. Nice. What would you want to be remembered for?
Oh, man. Making people smile, I guess. Creating happiness in the world. And I don't know. It's simple, it's basic, but I think it's good.
That's awesome. Well, Jake, thank you so much for joining the Breakthrough Podcast. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Getting to know you better, learning your unique story of getting into real estate, and I hope to stay in touch soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.